All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of The Real Impact. Got a great guest for you guys here today. Actually met him at a mastermind a few months back. So looking forward to it, and we'll dive in a second.
1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, so I'm going to bring in Rashard. What's going on, man?
What's up, brother? How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Heck yeah, man. So yeah, man, I just really want to, kick this off and, really just kind of tell everybody, what kind of got you into real estate, what got you to start, and then we'll dive into, how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, for sure. So let me start off by saying I apologize for the backdrop. I'm actually on a 10-day hiatus with the family. We flew out to Seattle, so we're driving down the coast and just having a good time. So I'm in a hotel office center. But yeah, dude, I got into real estate about 5+ years. I'm half Arabian, so prior to real estate, I was trying to fulfill my Arabian destiny by owning a gas station, and that failed epically. And I eventually stumbled into real estate, and here we are today.
Okay, so the gas station world, huh?
That's not as great as it's cracked up to be, honestly. But got into that business and then failed horribly. And at the time, I just had my third child, so we had 3 kids under 13 months old, and no savings. No trade, not knowing what the hell I was going to do, and stumbled across wholesale real estate and gave it a shot. And about 35 days later, landed my first deal, and that was about 500+ deals ago.
Yeah. Okay. When was that, like, timeline wise? We're in 2022
yeah,
now.
That was 2017, mid 2017.
Okay, so here we are about 5 years later, right? And I'd say it looks a little bit different now, huh?
Looks a lot different now. I'm extremely grateful. Had no idea this was, but it was possible through wholesale real estate.
Yep. So I mean, let's kind of break that down, right? I mean, so you said you kind of stumbled into it. Do you remember, like, what it was that you came across or that got you into it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, to give you a little bit of a backstory, like at the time I was driving 2 hours. 2-hour commute to work. I was working a 10-hour shift, driving 2 hours back. I was making like $700 a week. It was a pretty shitty situation to be in, especially with 3 kids.
Yeah.
And I just got frustrated. I got to the point where I was like, God, these guys are making, people are making millions of dollars a year, and people are thriving, and I'm over here and I can't even pay my rent.
There's got to be more.
So that's what. Yeah, there's got to be more to life than this. Yeah. There's got to be. Like if Joe Schmo can make millions of dollars per year, why can't I at least pay my bills?
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking into self-development, and I started following a couple of cool, influential people on Instagram, and I came across Secret Entourage.
Okay.
And interview with Nick Ruiz talking about wholesale real estate, no money, no credit needed, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, I can resonate with that. I've got no money. I've got no credit.
All the triggers, right? All the trigger words.
Exactly. Let's see what this is all about. So I ended up swiping my cousin's credit card for $500 and bought that guy's course. And dude, I inhaled that content all day, every single day while I was at the gas station working and on my commute to and from work. And I applied what I learned in it. And like I said, about 35 days later, closed my first deal, made $2,300. And it was a JV deal, so I ended up making like, I don't know, $1,700-$1,800 after I negotiated with the JV partner. And dude, that's when I realized that, hey, this could be something real. This could be something serious.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, right? Because I mean, I think a lot of people have this, idea, right? That like once they get into it, their first deal is going to be this, $10K, $20K, just like life-changing banger of a deal, right? And a lot of times it's not the case, a lot of times it's literally just that first deal that takes it from like, faith to fact, right? Like faith that it works to like fact, oh shit, this actually does work, So like, what was it for you that really like clicked? I mean, obviously, it was $1,800 deal, right? That's not, a life-changing amount of money, right? But what was it for you that like clicked that you were like, okay, there's more here, right?
Right. That's a great question and a great statement. So just the fact that I could literally make any amount of money from nothing. I threw out a couple bandit signs, took a few phone calls, and landed, $1,800. And dude, at the time I was working 84 hours roughly per week, making $700. And I'm like, dude, this took me 5 hours of my time. Like, this is a reality. And just ran with it.
Yeah. I mean, so I have a buddy of mine that he owns a 7-Eleven gas station here. So like, for people that don't know, that's a grind. Like, I'm sure, you've got more experience than I do, but like just from knowing him and seeing what he goes through, like the gas station game is a grind. And from what he tells me, like they make most of their money from the retail sales, like from like the stuff they have inside, than they do like actually like selling gas. Is that right?
Yeah, dude. And that's the reality of it. People think that we were making money in gas. Dude, there's no money to be made in gas unless you got like a big truck stop or a big pilot. But if you got a regular sized gas station, you're making money on the inside sales. But even then, like I told you, dude, it takes so much time and effort. You've got to be there. And of course, it's scalable like any other business, but it's so much harder to scale.
Especially with a young family too, man.
Yeah. But look, I look back now and I'm very grateful for it happening. In the moment, I would literally scream at the top of my lungs, asking God, like, why are you putting me in this situation? Like I've got a wife, I've got 3 kids under 13 months old. I've got no money saved. I have over $100,000 in debt that I acquired from that gas station that I don't talk about too often because it kind of triggers some PTSD. But
right. So now you close that $1,800 deal, right? You realize there's some legs to this thing, right? So then what next? Like what do you do next? Obviously, you're still in the gas station. You just closed your first deal. It's a JV deal. So kind of like what next, right?
Yeah, good question. For me, it was a simple wash, rinse, repeat. Did the process over and over again. And so I'm in the Memphis market. The spreads aren't massive like they are in the areas that you guys are in. So I'd hit these little 2-3K cracks. And of course, we make a lot more per deal now. But at the time, that's what I was doing, 2 or 3K cracks at a time. And for me, it was life-changing, right? That was life-changing money. And it gave me the confidence knowing that, like you said, there's more out there to life. And I got to the point to where I got about 5 or 6 deals down, and I decided that I wanted to, look into other marketing channels, and that's when I dabbled with, some cold calling and direct mail, stuff like that.
Okay. So obviously like talking about cold calling, right? That's kind of like, that's what I think. I want to say probably 90% of people probably start with, right? Is cold calling, cause it's, I don't want to say easy, but like it's I think the most direct, right? PPC, you have to learn this, this skill set, you got to navigate, Google and everything like that. But like, what was it for you that kind of like drove you to go into cold? Obviously I know what it was for me. Right. But what was it for you? Like coming from, not necessarily like a sales background, more of like an operational background to, want to dive into the cold calling.
Yeah, so I got to a point to where I really wasn't seeing great results anymore with the bandit signs and the direct mail. But I know the reason as to why I wasn't seeing results with direct mail is because I didn't have the freaking budget for it. Right, I was working with pennies. Like I'd get to the point where I'd close a little $3,000 deal, and most people could just throw that money right back into marketing. I had to say, okay, well, do I pay for daycare? Do I pay for diapers, or do I market?
It's different when you got a family, man.
Dude, it's so different when you have a family, especially when you have multiple kids. It's like very difficult choices to make. But to answer your question, low barrier to entry, right? We're heavy cold call now, even now that we do 100 to 150 deals per year. But it was the low barrier to entry that was enticing to me, so that's what I hopped into cold calling, and Didn't do very well at it the first couple months, but once you really try to, you figure out the processes and then the systems, and that's when you really start to thrive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think again, I think another common misconception, right, is with cold calling, it's just easy, right? And it's just pick up the phone and talk to people. But kind of fill us in a little bit is when you first start cold calling, what's the experience like?
Dude, for someone like me, like I'm an introvert, and I really was back in the day, but I kind of grew out of my shell knowing that I had to vocalize more and get out there to make money in real estate. So for me, cold calling was terrifying. The idea of talking to someone on the phone, I just felt intimidated and didn't know what the hell I was doing. But dude, it's an entirely different ball game for us now. We actually have a cold calling company. I'd love to talk about that later on if we get a minute. And like you said, the misconception is people think they're going to buy a little list and upload it to the dialer and start cranking out deals. But the reality is it takes so much more effort than that.
Oh yeah. Well, especially when you first get started, right? Most people don't even have a dialer or, know how to even like structure a list or, anything, or, they'll pull this, like, they'll go to PropStream, right? They'll sign up for that, the free trial, they'll get the PropStream, they'll download their first 10,000 record list. They realize that like half those records are LLCs, or they'll realize that like half those records are trusts or something like that. And like, for anybody watching that doesn't understand what that means, like, to skip trace, to get contact information for an LLC or contact information for a trust is super difficult, especially like if you don't have the resources and you're first starting out. Like, it's not as simple as just, submit the list to a skip tracing company and get it back. So yeah, I mean, and I think again, like you said, it's not just as simple as like upload the list, start the dialer. Like, the conversations you have in cold calling are brutal. Like some of the conversations you have in cold calling are brutal. And like, if you don't have thick skin, or like, if you don't have like a strong enough, like, why, then it's super easy to get discouraged right off the bat,
Very much so.
I think you're a lot similar to like how I am. Like anybody I talk to is just getting started, I tell them like, yo, start cold calling, like, get that active marketing going, get that proactive marketing going, that outreach. Inbound marketing is great, but I think for anybody, like you said, the lowest barrier to entry is cold calling. And but yeah, if you don't have tough skin and you don't have a strong enough why, dude, you'll get beat up cold calling. And I'm sure you've got some horror stories. I've got my fair share of horror stories of cold calling. It's tough, man, when you first get going.
Very, very. I mean, it's so tough that we, whenever we're onboarding someone, whether it's an acquisition person or whoever, we throw them on the dialer, right? Like you said, you got to have that thick skin. And if you could, if you can cold call and get cussed out multiple times per day, you could pretty much do anything.
You can conquer the world, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And big misconception with people, dude. Even with our cold calling company, we'll bring people onboard them, and they have this dream of closing 3, 4, 5 deals per month, just starting out with one caller. I'm like,
yeah,
like that. There's so many methods that you need to follow and process that you need to take. So fun times.
Yeah. So yeah, man. I mean, so let's kind of keep going down the timeline, right? You get your first deal. Obviously, it's just kind of like rinse and repeat. And just keep doing the process, right? I've got a wife, I'm married, we've got children as well. And, I started this business, in that, right? Like, I started this business when I was married, when we had kids and everything. So I know how difficult it is, like, taking that leap, right? So talk about like the support, right? Like, how big was it, was your wife supportive initially, and if not, why not? So like, how did that impact, you going forward?
No, for sure. So, dude, my wife, my warrior queen, I call her. She's been supportive from day one with everything I've ever done. I used to be a national level bodybuilder, and she was right there with me, forced me to eat and forced me to train. And when we transitioned into the real estate, she was right there with me, pushing me to get better every day. So, there's no way I could have done any of this without her. And as cliche as that may sound, like I
No, it's true. Yeah.
genuinely mean that. Like if you don't have a warrior queen or king in your support group, dude, it's going to be very difficult to make it. So she was there for me from day one. She still is. And dude, my biggest struggle really wasn't starting out. My biggest struggle wasn't really getting my first, landing my first deal or 5 deals. Like anyone could do that. My biggest struggle was scaling. My biggest struggle was going from, making $4 or $5 grand a month to making, whatever, 30, 40, 50 plus a month. That was my biggest struggle there. So yeah.
when did you kind of hit that roadblock, that roadblock, right? Because obviously, like you said, like in Memphis, I think in Memphis, from my perspective, right, the volume is a little bit higher, but the spreads are a little bit lower. Is that? I mean, and it could be wrong now, right? I think once you kind of figure it out, that is wrong. But just like for somebody starting off, I think, with those smaller markets, not as big like MSA wise, I think the spreads are going to be a little bit smaller, but you're going to get a little bit more frequency of your deals. So when for you did you kind of hit that roadblock of, okay, we're consistently pushing out, $5, $6, $7 grand a month, but what next, right?
No, for sure. So I would say 2018, 2019 was when I was going through my biggest stage of frustration. Like I said, 5, 7, 8, 10 grand, maybe 15 once in a while. And you know how it is. Dude, I'm talking gross numbers, not net. So I was making pennies off of that. And that's when I linked up with, I decided to link up with Joe Dillon. I'm sure you know Joe Dillon out of Florida. Great guy. Got with him in 2019. At that time, I think we're doing like 20 grand or so, roughly 25 a month. And that's when we just skyrocketed to 100 plus per month. I'd say mid to late 2019.
Okay. What would you say were the biggest changes that you made personally, but you also made, internally, like inside the company?
Okay. So one thing I try to preach as often as possible is everything is mindset. I feel the majority of success is mindset, right? You've got to truly believe that you deserve it. That was one of my biggest things. Like even in the gas station business, for some reason, like when we take our little draw sporadically once every couple months and make a little $1,000 as being the owner, I felt as if I didn't deserve it for some reason. But once I got out of that mindset and realized that I truly deserve success, that I truly deserve, wealth and freedom, that's when things started to change for me. So mindset shift, massive mindset shift. Just being fearless, going in there, knowing that I'm going to lose money, knowing that I'm going to fall, that I'm going to, I'm going to fall face first, but I'm going to get right back up. So
okay, yeah, it's expecting to fail, right?
Yeah.
It's embracing the fact that that's going to happen, and I think that's key, not just in real estate, but also in any venture or anything like that you're doing. There's gonna be things that you're just not good at, right? But you're not going to know unless you try it, unless you fail at it, and unless you just go do it. So, I mean, I think that's huge, right? Especially when it comes time to kind of breaking that ceiling that you guys were at, is that the same thing that got you to doing those consistent, 5, 6, 7 grand months definitely weren't the same things that got you guys to doing, 100 plus months, And so I think that's a big kicker there, is also from a leadership perspective, is how different was your leadership from, when you were doing the smaller months to, knowing you guys had to grow, knowing what you needed to do to grow? How did your leadership change?
Again, as cliche as it may sound, I had to. I understood that I had to lead from the front. I understood that I had to take those risks, and I understood that I had to push my team. And we had a very small team at the time, but still, we had a team nonetheless. And I knew that I had to kind of show them, hold their hand, walk them through it. There are times where I'd hop on a call with the seller and close a deal that was just short of closing, or hop on a call with the buyer he was kind of on the fence with buying one of our deals, like essentially leading from the front and taking those risks, knowing, like we just talked about, that I might drop 10 grand on marketing and not get a damn penny back from it. But that's the risk that I have to take in business.
Mm-hmm. All right. So now let's fast forward, right? This was, 17, 18, 19, right? Now we're in, September 2022. What's it look like now?
Things look a lot different. A lot different. As you can tell, I'm on a 10-day hiatus. Really haven't checked in with the team much. They're kind of doing their own thing. Are we perfect? Not even close. Can we do better? Will we do better? Absolutely. But dude, I'm living life. We have a team. We've got a couple acquisition killers. We've got transaction coordinator who does amazing. We have a disposition manager that I just brought on. So we're doing good. We're knocking out a couple $1 million per year in assignment fees, and we're all thriving.
Heck yeah, man. So what does like your team look like now? You say you got a couple acquisitions, PC. Let's kind of break that down granular for, people that are watching now or people that might, watch in the future. Because obviously you guys are doing a couple million in assignment fees a year, right? And I think the biggest misconception, right, is in order to do numbers like that, you have to have this just like massive organization, right? So what's kind of like, what's your team look like now?
And also, that's one thing I'm really proud of, and not necessarily for me only, but for my team. So, like you said it, you hit the nail on the head, right? People assume that you have to have this massive in-house team of 10, 20, 30 people, and that's just not the truth, right? So we're a very mean and lean team. We have 2 full-time acquisition managers. I've got a follow-up specialist / lead manager. I've got a transaction coordinator and a disposition manager. And those are the only people that we have in-house. So we're literally a team of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people locally.
Okay. And then what about virtually?
So virtually, we're heavy cold call. I would say probably 98% of our deals come from our cold calling team. We have anywhere from 15 to 20 cold callers in the Philippines, and we have a killer cold calling manager out there by the name of Pam. She's probably watching this right now. Shout out to Pam. And she essentially manages that cold calling team. She does all the hiring, the firing, the auditing. Because that's part of the cold calling success. I'm sure you know that also. You can't just hire a $3, $4, $5 cold caller and hope they can close deals for you. You've got to train them. You've got to audit them. You've got
full-time job in and of itself.
It's a full-time stinking job. And once I realized that, that's when I kind of passed that baton over to Pam, and she's doing very, very good at it.
Okay. So you guys have a super lean team. You guys are cranking out assignments and everything. You guys are doing $1 million plus a year in assignments. When did you kind of like, okay, cold calling's there, let's dip into that a little bit more. Cause I know, like you said earlier, you've got a cold calling company. So when did you kind of give birth to that cold calling company, and what was the kind of motivation behind that?
Yeah. So Austin, I'm sure you get calls like I do all the callers who just sound god awful, and I get calls every day, and I'm literally questioning, like, how are you employed? And about a year ago, that's when I thought, like, dude, we're having major success with cold calling. We're literally closing over 100 deals per year alone just from cold calling. Why not turn this into something? Why not offer this service to other investors? There's plenty out there for everyone. Why not monetize it? So that's when I decided to put the company together, and I decided to bring Pam in. She's a partner with us. And we put it together about a year ago, and we really just started marketing a couple months ago, trying to take it nice and slow and steady.
Right. You don't want to you don't want to over leverage anything, especially with something like that, where it's very people driven, very performance driven. So are you guys, so I'm assuming Pam handles like training them and, making sure they're up to date on their script and making sure that, they're up to date on their campaigns and everything like that.
Yep, exactly. So she does, like I said, all the hiring, all the firing, all the onboarding, the training. We don't provide a dialer. Our clients
Right.
have to provide their own dialer and their own data, of course, but we provide a super highly qualified cold calling ninja, as we call them. And again, they go through our onboarding process. And not only do we hand them off to you, but we also train them along the way. So Pam will have weekly huddles with them. She'll audit their calls weekly. I mean, that's called what it is. So she'll make sure they're not milking the clock. Like it's a full-time freaking job to have a quality cold caller. And people just don't realize that. They just, like I said, they assume you can hire anyone off of Fiverr and start closing deals, but that doesn't happen.
Nope. And I've went through those struggles, man. I think a lot of people have, you know, like, dude, I'll never forget, you know, 2 years ago, hiring my first cold caller, right? Super nice guy, crushed the interview, and I'm hyped. You know, like I'm like, dude, we're about to take this to the next level. Like this is it. And I'm sitting there throughout the day and I'm just like looking at my CRM and I'm like, oh, leads are about to start flowing in. Hour goes by, nothing. Another hour goes by, nothing. About 5 hours go by, nothing comes in. I was like, what the? Hold on a second. Log into my dialer. I listen to this guy. And, you know, we're based in Jacksonville, Florida, right? And he's literally calling people asking about Jackson Field and like wasn't on script whatsoever, like completely off the wall conversations. I could hear a chicken clucking in the back. Like it was crazy, right? And like that was my first experience with like outsourcing a cold caller, right? So like I was like mortified, you know? So I would suggest for anybody just getting started and, you know, use it as a plug, whatever, but like anybody getting started, there is definitely a shortcut when it comes to like hiring a qualified agency or hiring someone who's, you know, done the hard work or the grunt work of finding qualified agents or training them, right? Like, you know, you're not going to hear the chickens in the background. They're not going to mispronounce, you know, your city or whatever it is, you know? Dude, I won't forget that, man. That was crazy.
Dude, you and me both, right? And then you can take it a step further and talk about how, you know, they've got an excuse for being late or taking days off, tsunamis, volcanoes, earthquakes.
I was gonna say the Wi-Fi goes out.
Yeah.
They gotta go back to the store to refill their data card.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
Yeah, all the different excuses, right? And you know, and I think there is something to be said, right? Like if you can successfully build out a cold calling, you know, team in house, then obviously, you know, you're going to have a lot more control over it. You're going to have a lot more, you know, kind of direct hands-on. But man, dude, that's hard, you know, and it's tough. It's like you said, it's a full-time job. So I'm a huge proponent.
It took years.
Yeah.
I'm a huge advocate to get success. Cold calling.
A huge advocate for cold calling agencies, if you can't tell.
For sure. And guys, even if it's not with us, I think you're spot on. Like hire a cold call agency to get going, knock out some deals, and then slowly build out your own team. But to start off on your own, it's a disaster.
Yeah, it's tough. So let's dive into it now, right? Because I know, you know, whenever we spoke at the event that we were at, right? You guys are also diving into a lot of like innovations. I think you said you guys were doing some flips as well. So, you know, it's not just wholesaling anymore, right? Kind of explain like how did your business model kind of shift, you know, from just doing wholesaling?
Yeah. So, and let me say this, guys. I want to put this out here for everyone to hear it. So, especially the newbie wholesaler. The newbie wholesaler feels that wholesaling is not, you know, a good exit strategy, and the end all be all game is to become a flipper. And for me personally, that's just not sexy. It's not it.
No.
I don't flip anymore, dude. I flip like maybe 4 houses a year, maybe.
Yeah.
Because I enjoy.
They've got to be banger deals too, don't they?
Yeah, dude, they got to be banger deals. It's just not it. And from what I've seen, the majority of people who are flipping are people who really can't wholesale or aren't very efficient at wholesaling. The majority, not all of them, of course, but I enjoy wholesaling. The cash cycle is quicker, right? In and out, make it quick, 10, 15, 20, whatever you're doing, whatever you make, whatever your average size is. And you've got no risk or very low risk. And you could deploy that capital and 10x it over the next freaking 3 months compared to sitting on a freaking property for 3-4 months waiting for it to flip. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But so yeah, we wholesale first. We do a lot of novations as well. Not so many this year as we did last year because we kind of shifted into, I add to my rental portfolio as often as possible. We sell the hedge funds as well. But novations were a big game changer for us last. Over $1 million in assignment fees or in novation fees last year alone. So definitely don't miss that wave.
Yeah. So let's kind of just in like layman's terms, right? What is innovation?
Yeah. So to break it down, novation is nothing more than going under a contract like you would with a seller, but there's a clause in that contract that allows you to novate or assign your contract. Essentially, novate it's another word for assign or replace your contract to an end buyer, because technically you can't assign a deal. At least in my area, you cannot assign a deal to a conventional buyer, right? Somebody who's going to buy a property, right, through financing. So we novate our contract. So we're kind of just partnering up with our seller, and we're doing all the legwork for them, and we're making a nice size spread doing that.
Heck yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's essentially just telling the seller like, hey, you're going to get the contracted amount. We're going to have a different way of finding the end buyer. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I think that's huge too. Right. I mean, I've seen it, the trend, right, obviously slow down a little bit as the market shifts, but I still think there's a huge market for it, so that's my thoughts. We're not doing them as much, right? But I definitely think there is a huge market for the novations.
Yeah, for sure. We're not doing it as much either, man. We're getting kicked in the face every day now. We had to back out a couple of deals last week that we thought we were going to make a quick 20 on. We're going to novate. And the market's different, right? We're shifting. No one really knows where it's going, but we're going to pivot. We're going to adapt, and we'll be just fine.
So now on that topic, what are your thoughts with everything kind of going forward? Where do you think it's going? I think everybody's kind of got similar opinions, but different opinions. You know what I mean?
Right. Dude, I don't know. What I do know is that we're wholesalers, right? We're direct to seller. So if anyone has a freaking chance, it's us.
Right.
Right. Like it's going to be tough on flippers. Let's be real. It's going to be very tough on flippers. But we're direct to seller. The only thing that we need to change, the only thing is the offer amount, and convincing our seller that it makes sense to accept a lower offer. That's the only thing that we got to change, really.
Yep. Yeah, I think a big piece of that too is like education, right? One of the big things like we train our team on right now, especially, is like, being that professional whenever they're talking to the seller, right? Like if you go to the doctor tells you something, like you might question it, but at the end of the day, like they give you a prescription, you're probably going to fill it, and that's kind of the way that we like look at talking to sellers, right? Is like, we're the professional. This is what we do. And so we have to provide them the resources and the education as to why the offer is where it is, or why the market's doing what it's doing. I think that's a huge piece to everything going on right now. Because like you said, right, it's the biggest issue right now is just getting sellers to accept the fact that the offer is not what it was 3 months ago, not what it was 4 months ago.
Right.
How drastically everything's changed. It's crazy.
It really is. My team's super frustrated. We got, I think last week or the week before, we locked up like 6-7 deals, and dude, 3 months ago that would have been probably 140 grand, 100 whatever, over 100 grand easily, and it ended up being like 20. So the team is we're definitely going through some pains right now, and I'm sure all of us are to an extent.
Yeah,
it's just part of business. It's part of the game that we play, right? If you want a normal job that's consistent and stable, go work somewhere else. But if you want to thrive, dude, continue doing what you're doing. And that's for me too. That's for all of us, not the employees, but this business as a whole. Like, we just got to accept the fact that this is the reality of what we do.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, we just had our Monday morning meeting this morning, right? And like, one of the things that I touched on with our team really heavy this morning is like, we're about to be a huge problem solver for a lot of people, right? We're about to fill our role like really well. I like my opinion, like I think in the next couple months, like there's going to be a lot of people with a lot of issues where, we as like a wholesaling company can really provide a huge solution to their problem. And I think the biggest hurdle we're going to have is, just like you said, right? It's just letting them know that the price is what it is and here's why. And that's where that's what I really preached on with our team this morning is like, we have to switch our tone from and I think the past year, right, with the market as hot as it was the past year, you guys work with hedge funds, we do as well, like hedge funds buying where they were buying, flippers being able to, list a property basically as is and get, 110% of market value, right? Like we were more of like a transactional company. Let's be real, right? Like, I mean, let's be real, right? Like wholesaling for the past year was just been like transactional, right? Like we could get a house under contract for 90%, sell it for 95, make a good little rip and just keep moving, right? We didn't really have to dig in to, the why as much. We didn't have to dig into the situation as much. We didn't really have to provide, solutions to problems like as much, right? And I think like moving forward, I think we're about to get into that where, as long as we dig into those problems, we dig into like the situations, like we're going to be able to provide solutions to a lot of people. And I mean, that's kind of like how I feel about it. I don't know, how your thoughts are on that or anything.
No, dude, I feel you're spot on. It's funny. I'm smirking because I kind of had the conversation with my director of acquisitions this morning. We were talking about how it's been, pretty crappy over the past couple months from a traction standpoint, because we all know that in real estate, you lock up a deal today, or you get a hot lead that comes in today, you're probably closing it in a month, 2 months or so. So from a traction standpoint, it's been a little off over the past month or so, but we had a conversation today. We were talking about how sellers have to sell, right? They have to sell, and everyone's clenching now. They're holding on, not knowing what the market's doing or where it's going, essentially hoping and praying that it might go back up or stabilize. But again, the reality is they're going to have to sell. And when they do, we're going to be there to obviously make money, but to solve problems. And that's what I preach to my team as often as possible is that, yeah, we're making millions of dollars per year, but we are solving really, really big problems. I mean, if we look back at the past 10 deals that we've closed, I guarantee you probably over half of those deals wouldn't have ever been closed on the MLS or through an agent. Like we had to go above and beyond to get those damn deals closed, offer moving and advance $5,000 for someone to get a new rental property. Like we do so much problem solving that, dude, they've got to sell, and we're going to be here to make sure we help them out.
Yeah, no. And I think that's, again, like that's like, I think that moving forward is going to be the biggest like kicker, right? I think the companies that really thrive in the next couple months, and they're still around, let's be completely frank, right? Like you said, it has been tough, right? The market recently I think what it's going to do is I think it's going to squeeze out the companies that don't have structure, don't have meaning behind them, or don't have, that foresight. I think it's really going to start squeezing out a lot of those people, right? Which I think we're starting to see, a lot of the times, like where we were dealing with higher offers or, whatever the case was, we're not dealing with that as much, And so that's a lot, again, like what I'd say a common message to, a lot of people in our seats right now is, we got to ride it out. We can't blame the market. We can't lean on that crutch. There's still people that we can help. There's still situations where we can come in and be a solution, but we got to ride it out because in the next month, 2 months, 3 months, there's going to be a plethora of opportunities. And, what I've been telling them is like, we just have to be that consistent voice, right? We can't cave, right? Oh, I have an offer 15K higher than you guys. Can you match it? No, we can't. Here's why. Right. And we have to be that consistent voice. And like I said, like what I told them is they might sign with somebody else. Likelihood is if they're 15K higher than where we are, they probably can't close, and especially if it's another wholesaler. And so that's where, like, I think a lot of people right now, like, if you guys are watching, or if you guys are, tuning this later, watching on YouTube or whatever, if it's tough right now, you just got to stick with it. Stay the course, stick with it, because it's going to change, right? Like you said, like, people have to sell it. And I think what's happening now is there's not a lack of people that want to sell. I don't know how it is in Memphis, but I know, like, at least in like Northeast Florida, there's like over 5,000 active listings right now. And that's like doubled, month over month. So people still got to sell. There's still a lot of people that want to sell. It's just a matter of timing, right? And that's been like the common message for us recently, at least.
Same here. Timing, and at the end of the day, it's that offer price, right? People are holding out, waiting for something to change, and it's only going to get worse for a while. I mean, let's be real. It's only going to dwindle down a little more. So
they're the they're the kid that missed the bus, right?
Exactly.
And they're chasing it now. Exactly. They're chasing it, hoping it's going to stop, and that driver is just one-track minded going to school.
Amen. I feel like I tell my team that all the time.
Yeah.
Especially the acquisition side. Like, they get frustrated with deals that were, 30, 40K cracks months ago. I'm like, guys, they're just holding out. They're holding out, but they will sell eventually. So like you said, we got to ride this wave and continue to do what we're doing. And I'm glad we were structured well enough to kind of withstand the storm.
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. So let's dive into, like, obviously, you have a family and everything like that. So you're on a 10-day hiatus, right? How has, obviously, the wholesaling and everything and real estate, how has that, like, really changed your life and your family's life and, your capabilities and everything?
Yeah, dude, wholesale real estate has really, dude, it's life-changing in every aspect. I never knew that we could attain this type of, lifestyle, freedom, and wealth in such a short period of time. Let's call it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Most people work a 30, 40-year job to be able to retire and make a couple $100,000 a year, maybe. And
maybe if they're lucky.
If they're very lucky.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, I mean, I have people on my team who make well over 6 figures every year while working from home, while living a life of freedom and flexibility. So, dude, it's been freaking amazing. The gratitude that I have is just it's massive at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I think that's too, like, that's another thing, like you hit on earlier, right? It's like, I think a lot of people look at it when you're getting into real estate, it's like there's like a ladder, right? And they look at it as like wholesaling is like that bottom ladder, right? And then that bottom rung on the ladder, and then it's like you go to flipping, and then it's like you go to, whatever, right? And they look at it as like different levels, right? Where, I don't think that's what it is, and like you said, like, personally for me, I don't like, what would you say for people that are looking at getting into real estate and, they kind of see it as like a ladder, or they kind of see it as whatever? What would you say to people that are really looking to get into it, but don't really know where to go?
Dude, I feel wholesale real estate is obviously, in my opinion, step one, right? Lowest barrier to entry, quickest way you could turn some cash. But you need to get to a point to where you identify opportunities. And what I mean by that is, not every deal is a wholesale deal, right? Not every deal is a flip deal, right? But you have to be able to have enough exits on your tool belt to monetize every single potential deal, right? So that's why we wholesale, we novate, I'll flip, like I said, once in a while if I have to. We do a lot of wholesaling, right? Where we just buy a property and throw it right back on the market and make a little, quick penny on it. Add to your rental portfolio. Like, there's so many exits in real estate, it's bananas. And like you said, it's not a ladder. It's all right, how can I make money off this deal? What's the best exit for this particular deal and this seller situation? And going after it. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think like you said, right? I think the people that look at it as like different rungs on a ladder, they mess up because they start wholesaling, and then when they start flipping, they completely like strangle or just cut off their wholesaling, right? And then they're trying to flip, but they're having trouble sourcing deals. And I think a lot of people fall into that category, right? Where it's like they start wholesaling, they see a little bit of success, and then they think, okay, let's level up, or whatever it is, right, to flipping, and they just completely like stop their wholesaling operation. Whereas like, I mean, like for someone like you or like myself, like I don't think I'll ever shut this thing down. It's
what makes sense. It's a freaking money machine. It's a cash cow.
Yeah. And I think too, like, would you agree that like for someone that's just getting into like wholesaling real estate, like I would say probably two of the biggest skills to like really study on and really master and really like get in the nitty-gritty of sales and marketing.
That's the majority of what this business is, right? Sales and marketing. And of course, being as creative as possible to solve problems. I think that's where kind of we thrive in our particular areas because we solve a ton of freaking problems. But you said it spot on. You got to be able to sell, meaning you got to be able to close a seller, and you got to be able to market.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's the backbone of what we do.
Yeah, I think like like we touched on earlier, I think really, really getting into nitty gritty with marketing, really getting, honing in those skills and really like sharpening those skills when it comes to marketing is crucial for people starting off. Right. I came from a sales background. So like the sales part of it was like, it was just like, I don't want to say a cakewalk, but it was just like another day in the park. Right. It's what I'm used to. That's what I did. I sold multiple different things. The marketing side for me though was foreign, like super foreign. Right. So like that was a big thing that like I had to like really like sharpen those skills at, right? Was I had to learn how to market. I had to learn how to market effectively, and like you said earlier, where it's not just like throwing out 10 grand and nothing comes from it, because for a lot of people starting off, like a lot of people don't have 10 grand to throw at something, and they can't afford to like throw 10 grand at something and not see it, and for me, like I remember whenever I was first starting off, like buying prop stream was an investment, $90 a month. I was looking at that and I was like looking at my account. I was like looking at my wife and I was like, oh, I got to do it.
Yeah. We've all been there.
Yeah. And so I think like, I would say like some of the biggest advice that I would give to people is like, if you're first starting off, like really do a self-evaluation, like what your skill set is, like really do a self-evaluation, like what you're good at, what you're not good at. And on those two skill sets in particular, like sales and marketing, like I would really hone in on, which one you're not that strong at. Like for me, I wasn't strong at marketing. Sales, I could figure it out, right? And so I just remember like back then doing all the research I could on marketing. I mean, I was watching YouTube after podcast after YouTube after podcast on, marketing. Because like, dude, up until, the event that, we met at, I hadn't done any coaching or any, mentorship program or anything like that. So I was the first like educational thing that I had went to. And, it was eye-opening for me, right? On like the structure behind everything. Cause that's kind of where we're at is, we're in that kind of like growth, like kind of ceiling right now.
Wow. That's crazy impressive, dude. Cause you were already killing it. I can imagine what you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, now it's, we're feeling the sign of the times, right? Yeah. But like I said, we're pushing through, right? But yeah, man. So we're coming up on like the 50-minute mark, and getting closer to an hour. So really want to kind of let you leave it with, what's one thing you want to kind of leave everybody with that kind of exemplifies, what you believe in, and, a little bit of motivation for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. So awesome. I want to empower everyone. I want everyone to know that they can essentially live a life of complete freedom. simply by living out their max potential, right? And dude, we control everything. We control or can control the majority of everything, right? Freedom is a choice. If you want to be free, whether it's being wealthy, healthy, having a great relationship with your spouse, whatever the heck you want in life, like, dude, you can make it happen. The decision is yours to make. One thing I tell people a lot is, everything you are, right, and everything you aren't is a direct reflection of decisions that you've made. Like, really think about that. Like, awesome, where you are today because of decisions you've made. Someone broke is where they are today because of the effed up decisions they make continually. So you can attain anything in life, guys. Anything that you want is attainable as long as you make the decision and the choice and you go after it. It's possible.
Boom. Rashard, man, I appreciate you, man. That was I couldn't agree more, man. So hang in for a second, and we'll link up after this. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of The Real Impact. Again, Rashard had a great message, so stay tuned. We got another great episode for you guys next week. Peace.